Then Hadar means revise. By the Torah we say chazak. And I heard it from my father once. What's chazak? Chazak. Chazak is Rosh Hashanah. Chazak is chodesh. If you akre, if you plow, zayin, zoreya, then you sow, then kaitza you'll be able to harvest. If you're harva, you'll understand. You'll have what to walk away with.
So what's the nafli between chazak and the hadar?
Do some brachas. Sure. Okay, we're up to today's daf is Daf Kuf Yud, the penultimate plot of Bava Metzia. We're up to the Mishnah on Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. So we're continuing to discuss either the cases of a seicher and a masker landlord and a tenant, and what the responsibility of the landlord are, or two partners and they share a property, one upstairs, one downstairs, and whose responsibilities and what responsibilities they are. So we continue on that theme before we segue into another theme. Mishnah. The same thing that we just learned about a dwelling place, the same thing applies to an upstairs and a downstairs owned by two people. The same thing here is that a Beis Habad, if you have an olive press place, Shuboni Bisela, obviously it was a mountain, and somebody you carved out of the mountain a space near the top of the mountain where you made there your a Beis Habad, and the Gina Achlagabav, and the other party owns the garden. He on top of the mountain, right above this olive press, he planted there a garden. Planted a garden. And what happened was an ifchas. The top of the mountain where the garden was suddenly sort of gave way. Part of it gave way. He's had a bal hagina yoided v'zareya lamata, which is very similar to before we said the upstairs of the ceiling gives way. He moves into the downstairs. So here also he plants downstairs. He plants where the olive presses. Until this guy makes like an arch, makes like a dome over there so that the person on top can plant. The Gemara is going to ask, the principle is exactly the same as we had yesterday. Why is it here? Interesting that in the Mishnah this part of the Mishnah is part of the previous Mishnah. And here, for whatever reason, they separate and put into another Mishnah altogether and continues with other Yonim, which are a little bit different.
Even buyers, I understand if the balabos lives downstairs and the roof falls in.
No, two owners. In the case of the buyers, it's not a landlord tenant. There's two owners. One guy owns the top, and one guy owns the bottom. So
why in a field? I mean, just because this guy's on top of the mountain, I don't have any shaykhs to him.
I'm right on top. No, you made a hole here in the mountain. I'm right on top of you. I'm right on top of you here.
So he
dug into the mountain. Hollow, exactly. Hollow out of the mountain, an area to make an olive press. I'm right above that.
No, it is.
Okay, so he said, and he has to what do you call it? Build this. He has to build this thing over here. And build that whole thing for the upstairs. The other guy just moved in downstairs. Yeah. In the case of the house before, we had the entire house collapsed. Here we're talking about that the house collapsed, the floor in between. In the case of the house and the floor in between collapsed, according to many, the guy downstairs doesn't have to fix it. He says, why not? Because the guy downstairs is going to say, I'm happy with the roof that you have. What do I need a roof for? I need a roof for to shelter me from the sun, the rain. The roof that you have on top of your house is good enough for me. In fact, I'll be happy if you weren't even there and I have the whole thing. I don't need a roof. It's only for you. So therefore, you would have to maybe pay for it. But over here, when it's two owners, it's not like the case of Masker and Seicher, which said the landlord has to fix the home. Over here, this guy needs that covers to protect his olive press. Otherwise, all the elements fall right into his thing there. So it's his benefit as well. And that's the case here. Then go right to next case. A case village the wall and a tree falls into the public space. The can cause damage. Part of the dinner, if it's an inus, it's not your fault. Provided that Hashem say you built the chatzil in a proper way, and then you are potter if it falls in. And in fact, we had Bava Metzia that if there was an inus, you're potter b'shas tefillah. And Achana Fila will give you whatever the relative to the time that you think pieces of a you'd be picking up straight away. If it takes longer, whatever the normal time is to clean up, we give you that amount of time, and after that you become liable. But we also learned if you're mafkir, you're nezakov. In the case where it's an einus, and afterwards somebody gets hurt, you're potter. But if it was your fault when it fell down, even any damage that comes afterwards, even if you were mafkir it, you're still liable. So anyway, so this wall fell down, collapsed. What about Nostal's man? They gave you a warning. In other words, there was an inkling that this thing here, is a little bit loose, and you better, it's not firm, not stable. That's a kaisel, or to demolish the wall. The nafle it just and fully fell down. Depends. Bit teichas man potter. He didn't do anything wrong. Lachas man chayiv, but after the time he is chayiv. And after the time he's chayiv again. So that's like negligence. My wall was next to your garden. The nafla, my wall collapsed, and the stones fell into this person's garden. And the guy says, remove your stones from my garden. He told him, you know what? Keep my stones. You can have them. Ain't shaming. The guy in the garden says, I don't want your stones. Clear them. You can't say, here, you keep the stones, it's your problem. And you can sell them and make a few dollars and pay. No, you can't force the situation. If the guy in the garden says, okay, I'm happy to keep the stones, they're mine. And then a while later, Amalei said, hey, here, I'm going to pay you for your expense. In other words, the guy cleared the stones. Obviously, he took them and he kept them. And the owner of the stones, the owner of the house, came over and said, you know what? I changed my mind. Here's the money. It cost you $100 to hire help to clean it up. I want my stones back. Take my stones back. Once you granted him permission to have it, then he can keep it. Now, the Gemara is going to highlight the fact that it says only once the guy actually cleared out the stone. Sounds like to me if the guy would not have had any hitzos. If the owner of the garden, the guy in the house that keeps the stones, and the owner of the garden did nothing about it. Sounds like from here that the owner of the house could change his mind. Or the woman change his mind and say, give it back to me. It's only because he already expended money that he cannot change his mind. Now, his chatzah is clean the moment you gave it to him. Why? And I want to explain, because if he only said it, here, you can keep the stones, not because he wanted to keep the stones. He just wanted to push the guy away, until he's ready to work out what he wants to do with the stones or something. It was just a delay tactic. It wasn't a real grant. But once the guy spent money, bam. Similar case, and more know why we have the same principle. You hired an employee. Lastly, maybe cash. What was he? Whole straw, half straw. He said to him, 10 li schari, and the employee says, pay me wages. You know what? Keep the straw. That's your payment. That's a movie payment. Ain't shaming like you have to give him money, cash. Even though you're shavah kesef, we'll see, but when it comes to the employee, it has to be cash. But mishakibul olav, if the employee said, okay, I'm happy to keep the straw. Then he said to him, hey, Liz Charsa, when he had to literally hear, you know what? 2 days later, I give it to you. Ain't shame light. Too late. He gave it to him, it's his matana. Now the Gemara explains. First of all, the same machlekes for Nifchas, Rav says, Berubim. Rav says that it's talking about that most, when do we say that the guy in the olive press has to pay? Only if majority of the floor gave way. Exact same machlekes we had before by the house, the floor. When can the guy upstairs move downstairs? Going to Rav, if you're only a little, 4 tvachim, live partly downstairs and partly upstairs. And Shmuel says no such thing. Shmuel says even 4 tvachim, it's uncomfortable. Rav has to be the majority. Shmuel says no, even 4 tvachim, you can't live part here, part there. It's not alike. Same thing with the garden. You can't have part garden there, part garden there. But for tvachim, you can have a little bit of your garden downstairs and the majority upstairs. No, it's not the way you have a garden, part here, part there. Is exactly the same like we had by your house, and we're having over here, upstairs and downstairs. You need both arguments. Indeed, by house. Maybe argues there, perhaps. It's not the way you live, a little bit here, and then your pantry downstairs. Avalinian Zuriya. But when it comes to someone else's house, when it comes to planting, maybe it is common for people to plant part of the garden here, part of the garden there. It would be made to Rav. Because you have little patches of garden. People have little patches in the backyard, a little bit here, a little bit there. So maybe it's common. We only knew the case of the garden. I would say, Rav said, look, it's common. When it comes to a house, maybe is not the normal life. We need both. Exactly. The Bezin gave him a time period. Says the Gemara, what's the general time period? They usually give you 30 days notice. So big machlekes are showing this applies to everywhere. That every time Bezin gives notice by anything, it's usually standard practice is 30 days unless they say otherwise. And the machlekes will be the big machlekes are showing comes out to be by a loan. I give you a time of, let's say, 90 days to pay me back my loan. The Malva cannot go to Bezin unless first he approaches the Leiv and he says, pay me. You can't go to Bezin and say, the guy owes me money. Bezin say, go talk to him. What do you want from us? So if the Leiv refuses to pay or doesn't pay, then he goes to Bezin. So the Machlekes Rishonim, when he goes to Bezin, does Bezin give him another 30 days to pay before they listen to the case? Or it's straight away? Because the Rambam seems to learn you give another 30. The Rambam that both learned that this rule of 30 days applies to everything. As soon as you go to Bezin, Bezin says, okay, give him a notice, we'll give you 30 days to pay. And Tais is another shame. Oh no, that doesn't apply to a case of a milva.
This is one of the cases saying this.
Then yeah, I'm talking about a milva with the machlekes says. Yeah, everything depends. Yeah, Misha for example, the case of the broken piece of the barrel, you have to pick it up. But okay, you have 30 days to pick up the pieces of Shusarabim. No, you got to pick it up straight away. Everything is based on its merits. Misha Kaisle. Safer. Since it said a safer halach, you'd see us here. Here's the money for your expense. McLeod, the panino, the only time that you can, I would say the gardener gets to keep it, the owner of the garden gets to keep it, is if you already cleared it out. See, in time, the panino only could have cleared it out. Panino, the owner of the garden did not clear it out. The owner of the wall says, keep the stones. Keep it. And then 5 days later, it comes back and says, no, I want my stones back. But the owner of the garden didn't know anything about it yet. Sounds like the guy from the wall can change his mind and take the stones back. Am I? Why don't you say that the person of the garden of the owner of the garden was kind of, as soon as you granted him the stones, he said, hey, keep it. Why wasn't he kind of in an instant? Rabbi Yossi said that a person, we know that a chutz is kind. Rabbi Yossi is adding imish to lemedaita. Without Rabbi Yossi, we could have answered, talking about the owner of the garden wasn't home, so he was never near his chutzah. Without Rabbi Yossi, we would have thought that the only time your chutzah is kind is if you're standing with Tzadzadeyu. Come along, Rabbi Yossi said that even shlemedaita, as long as the chutzah mishtameres, you're kind. So now that Rabbi Yossi established that a chutzah is kind, my question is, why wasn't he kind? So my answer is, that's only the owner of the stones intended for you to own them. Pure delay tactic. Because if the moment he saw you hiring help, coming over, he didn't change his mind right then and there, is that right? Then he meant it at the time.
Maybe he doesn't have money right now to pay workers. He's stolen.
Yeah, but once the guy spends a penny on it, then it becomes, and you and Meiche, then it becomes real. What's the case of the Seicher? Why do we need both cases? The case of the Seicher and the case of the stones, the principle is the same. Because only the case of the stones, when he said to the guy, keep the stones, I would have said, why in Shemilai? I don't owe you. Why am I giving you the stones? I owe you nothing. So obviously, I didn't really mean to give you the stones. I have no shaykha to. If I tell you keep the stones, the Gemara says, and the guy in the garden says, I'm not mentioning the stones, just take it away. So ain't Shemla, right? You don't listen to me. You don't get to. I have to clear the stones. My responsibility. Because why shouldn't I clear the stones? Why should you be mechuyev to carry my stones for me? Because go to neighbors. So that's why ain't Shemla. I have no right to tell you keep my stones. I will but if you're an employee, I owe him money. So I would have thought if I say to you, what, I owe you money, keep the straw, and says I owe you, maybe I have a right to say that. Keep the straw, and that's your payment. And don't say ain't Shemilai. Ain't Shemilai. The Armani Inchi, because there's a famous saying that people say if somebody owes you money, take whatever he gives, because you don't know if you'll ever get paid anything else. If somebody owes you money, take even junk, take even subin, take anything. Just take it. If a guy's offering you something, even though it will be a tircha for you to transfer computer to money, but take it, because who knows who'll ever get anything else. So that's what we would have thought. That's why we have to tell you the case of the poil. No, so V'yesh min hacha tells the case of the poil that ain't shaymin. If he says he keeps it, surely in the case of the wall, you're right. But there's another thing there. That once he told him here, that once he told him he can keep it and the guy spend money, he can no longer change his mind. Is hacha shemish kibul ain't shaymin. There's a chiddush here that once he accepted ain't shaymin mission easily agragabay. I would say, if I only knew the case of poil, I would say that once the worker said, "Okay, I'll keep the straw," and then I changed my mind. It makes sense why it ain't shameless. The guy cannot change his mind because he owed the guy money. He said, "Keep the straw in lieu of the money." So therefore, the guy has a right to keep the money. It's not stam level tonight, and that's why he cannot change his mind. But I would have thought I will hoch in the case of the stones. You're just my neighbor. Okay, Taka said you can keep the stones, but I didn't really mean it. I was just trying to delay. So I would have thought that even after you spend money, I still have the right to say, take the money back, because I don't owe you anything. The stones have no shaykhs to you. I just didn't have the means to take it back whatever it is at the time, and therefore maybe I could change my mind. Maybe I could change my mind, take my stone back. So therefore, there's a nuance in each case that we need to know. There's a chiddush in each one. Okay, but Tanya, we learned Shem we do is that he can change his mind. Oh, but I'm not like Kasha. Can that that if, no, if he tells, we're talking about the case here where he says to the employee, keep the straw in lieu of payment. The Al Mishnah says, ain't shame you got to pay him money. I but I says shame that yeah, I have a right to tell you, keep it, keep the straw, and that's your payment. So I'm not going to give trying to give different explanations as to the mission of Braise. He'll say as follows: and if I hired you for me, so I heard about soul and all that, then I have to pay cash. I cannot tell you take the cash at heaven in place of the money. But if remember we had before, but I hire you, but I really send you in my friend's field, I still have to pay you. Then I go back to the friend and I collect from him whatever, not the full payment, but the benefit that he had. So since you're not really there, I'm allowed to give you straw in place of money. That's what Rav Nachman wants to say. My time. What's the reason why he cannot give him straw in lieu? You owe me the money and pay me cash. The din is if I hire you, an employee, to work in someone else's field, I didn't tell him someone else's field. There's a hire. I hire you, so I'm the one who's able to all that if I'm delaying in payment, and I send you on the field, I have to pay you the same way. So why should over here I'll be able to give you straw in lieu? The Tanya we learned. If I hire you to work in mine, but then I didn't tell you, I deceived you, and I sent you to my friend's field. I have to pay you in full because I hired you. And then the Balabais then I go to turn around to Balabais and I collect from him the benefit that he had because he would have to hire workers. That's benefit of Chalapachas. So why should there be a difference? So I'm not going to give it an answer. Like Kasha. Can bishal, if I send you to my own, I got to pay you cash. Can bishal hefker. If the straw is hefker, so therefore he says, and the way Rashi and Hashem explained that Nachman holds that Bava Metzia Daf like kana chavera. So therefore, the straw that you worked on, even though you think you're working for me and you pick up the straw and so on, I'm not kind it. So therefore, you didn't really do anything for me.
Doesn't he say something about
we had because the rest of the world now can no longer have this mitzvah. So Magbim Metzia Chavera had a machlekes. Remember Bava Metzia Daf. Magbim Chavera is kana chavera, I like kana chavera. The Nachman is a view that like kana chavera. We had a beya. So Magbim Chavera like kana chavera. So therefore, all the straw that you worked on, you didn't do anything for me because I have nothing from it because I'm mine. So there's no Isa about Solin because he did nothing for me. That's why over there I can pay you Shavik Kesef Kesef. I can give you the straw so you keep that. The Gemara I'm not happy. You're right. Stam, but this is not Stam. This is an employee. This is a poil, and we know that Yad Poil. We also had before enough if you're based. A Yad Poil is Kiyad Bala, but know that a worker is like an extension of the Balabas. So therefore, even though the straw might be hefker, but because he's doing it for me, it's like I'm picking up the straw. So it's like therefore I am chayiv all the dinim of a poil, and therefore why should I be able to pay you straw? If just because I did feel of hefker, Pretty Gemara. It says if a worker I hire you, let's say to do a particular job, and while you're doing that job, you found a wonderful mitzvah. He's a mitzvah. If you took up any time, you got to pay me for that time. But the mitzvah is yours. I told you to weed for me, I told you to plow for me. So I gave a specific job. I didn't tell you to go find mitzvahs for me. I say, you work for me today without specifying a particular job. So whatever you do is me. I'm doing it. Mitzvahs are balabais. So the hefker is really balabasas. So why should there be a difference? You're back to the square one. Elam Nachman, answer number 3. Like cash. And this is what we had at the very beginning when we see the base of it all. Kan bahagbo, kan bahabot. It depends what the guy did. Both from a hefker. But if the worker's job was to pick up the straw, that was the job, and make bales out of them, and so he made a kinyan, and because he made a kinyan and he's a poyo, therefore says the balabos had it to you, my employee, I cannot give you straw as payment, I got to pay you cash. But if I hired as a watchman, your job is habot, just look. So you were never kind of the straw. Therefore, I'm not kind of the straw. Therefore, you're not really my employee as far as I got nothing from you. So there's no baltol and everything else. In that case, I can pay you straw instead of cash. And the Gemara, and the Rashi gives another example, not that even if you had a physical job, but the job was not to lift the straw, your job was to push the straw down from a high point to a low point. So there's no kinyan there. The idea is there's no kinyan here, only habata. And habata behefker loy konim. Omar Rabba says this concept habata behefker is a machlekes tanoim. Machlekes tanoim. Yeah, okay. The machlekes if you kind of hefker just by looking. Now, what's the machlekes? The crux of the machlekes is when you make a kinyan, what's the main purpose of a kinyan? Is the main purpose of a kinyan taking out of the shus of the owner, or the main purpose of the kinyan, and therefore the gemela it's mine? So that's the easy part. The main thing is taking out of someone else's shus, or the main part of the kinyan bringing it into my shus. By Metzia, there's no owner to take it out of because it's your shus hefker. So therefore, if the main work of a kinyan is that to make it mine, that's what a kinyan is all about. Well, habata is not a kinyan. So therefore, Habat is not koine. But the main purpose of a kinyan is to take it out of someone else's shus. But to make it mine, just the fact that it's by me is already enough. If the main thing of the purpose of kinyan is take it out of the other person's shus, then hefker Habat should be sufficient to show your balabas, the current balabas. You're not taking out of anybody's shus. So that's what machlekes tonight. Now we learn. Sheimer is shvicha shvis. A shmita, when it comes to the omer, and you're not allowed to own it, and nothing has to be hefker. But Bezin would set up shemim to make sure that nobody steals to have what omer for Pesach. So shvichim are things that grow by themselves, right? Nobody planted them; they grew by themselves. So it's either a barley for oimer or wheat for the shter lechem. So Bezin hires the shayim l'shvius, and Bezin noitis chadrus. Where they get paid from? We want it to be communal, so therefore we pay them out of the general lishka, the general coffers that the base of English has. Rabbi says no. If a roitzim misnadavu, if somebody wants to volunteer, for free with pleasure, v'shay mechinim, and he'll be like a shay mechinim. A private person can donate his time, be meichel his time, and to go ahead and watch a guard, make sure nobody takes it away. Says the Gemara, they said to him, how can you say that? Ain't boy Mishal Tzibur. That instance there comes out, it belongs to a private person. Remember, it's Hefker. The private person who's watching it is doing Habbata, that's how we understand it. And therefore, they think that that's a kinyan. And now it belongs to this private person. And the private person, now, the whole idea of these Kabbalah Tzibur belongs to the Tzibur, not to a private person.
He's actually being another.
That's what it sounds like. No, the Kontana Kama, Habbata Hefker's kind. We got a problem. How does it go to Yesi? It's not a problem just because you looked at it, he was never koined, so therefore it's still the Tziburs. Yeah, but he never was koined the oimer, so that doesn't matter. My lab about having a so we got a problem. If you pay him, then the payment is the transfer and the oimer becomes the tziburs. However, therefore nothing wrong. He was never koined in the first place. The tzibur physically come and say he didn't do anything. He just stood there and watched. The tzibur, whoever the gabbai, will come and take it. So it was never his. It never went through him. It became directly the tziburs. So that's machlekes. So they say to him afterwards, they said, if we borrow your words, this is what they concluded to the comment to Rabbi Yasi. And let's explain how that fits into this. He said, if you take your part of your halacha and part of our halacha, then ein oime v'shtei halechem boyim mishal tzibur. If we take part of your halacha, a private guy can look at it, and you believe what we say, the habata behefka kani, we got a problem. Yeah, that's what it makes sense. So the chayre we see clearly. This is what Rabbi is saying. The machlekes of habata behefka is kind of now. Omar Rabbi says, no. I would say, look at his first answer. Kuli alma habota behefka kani. Even though the Gemara in the base of it says no, about the kind. Here we would have thought that Rabbi's first economic is everyone knows about the kind. But over here, so what's the problem? If everyone holds your kind, so what's the machlekes? How can I be say a private person can do it? They're arguing, will the private person donate it wholeheartedly to the base Hamikdash or not? And the machlekes is shema layimsin yafi yafa kibifliki. They're arguing as whether a person will wholeheartedly donate to the base Hamikdash or he has some misgivings he does have himself, and therefore it's not really the korban tibur. The Rabban Savri Yavin Le'agr. Rabban hold that we have to pay him because otherwise we're scared that he won't give it wholeheartedly to the base Hamikdash. However, And Rabbi said, no, but he had no problem. A private person can do it. Taka, he's kind about this kind of, but he'll give it over wholeheartedly to the base of English. Oh, and then how do we explain the words of the Tanakhama to Rabbi Yasi? We got a problem. And what do we say? If we take your words, the Chayshinan, Shema, if you take our words of Chayshin that you're not that person does not give it over wholeheartedly, and we'll take your words that a private person we can do the work, can look at it, and Habatas Kaina, we got a problem then. It's not really a tzibur. Ikidar is another version. Rabbi about to have a like on it. Everyone knows about it, and that's how we take on. Habat is not kind. You're worried that other people will come along and confiscate and take the for themselves, and that's the only reason why you would hire a guard. So the question is, are we worried about these things or not? No, we need to tell the world that this belongs to Hegdish. If they don't know that it belongs to Hegdish, people will take it. We're going through the motions of paying this person. Why? By paying someone, people will hear that, oh, this belongs to Hegdish, and they'll walk away. Now, I'm not sure why you have to say Baal Israelis. Anybody will come. So it doesn't make a bad person or a strong-armed person who will want to take it away. The vart is we want people to know that this particular section of the field is going to Hegdish. So please don't touch, don't take.
Is going to respect Hegdish?
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course. But by paying, it becomes public knowledge. And Abiyezi holds like Tikinu. We are not worried about Baal Israel. Sort of different. What does it mean when they say if we take your words that a private person does it, and that we're worried that the Baal Israel will take it away, and they will not come tzibur. Why? Because the people will take it away. Because they won't know. If we don't pay, they won't know, and we won't have anything left. We're worried about Baal Israel. That's the next mission. How much is that? If somebody takes out his fertilizer and his garbage and he puts it out into the street, is hamaitzi mezabel. The person puts it out straight away, and the person who's going to turn it into fertilizer must do it straight away. Not allowed to leave it hanging around, according to Tanakama. You're not allowed to leave it hanging around in the public space because people could trip and tumble and so on. Nor can you go ahead. They let soak your cement in the shusarabim because people they used to gather together all this mud and everything, let it sit there for a while to turn into hard cement, whatever. You're not allowed to leave that in a public place for a while. For a short time, yes, but not for a while. You're not allowed to go ahead and form molds of bricks. Leave it in the shusarabim because it will form a mold because also deep. You have to have however thick you make a mold in the street and you let it sit there for a few days till it takes the shape, and then you make a lines across the edge, lines across it. I'll do it again in shusarabim. It's not your place. Sorry, I will go with Titnishram, but you're allowed to need Titnishram. But you're allowed to do because you're there, you do it, and you take it away. But not when it comes to bricks. It takes a long time. If somebody builds in the Shusarabim, maybe Havonim, maybe so. Let's say building right next to Shusarabim. Maybe Havonim, maybe the guy who brings the stones brings it. The guy who builds it takes it straight off the guy you bring. No, you don't let things hang around. There's a public space. Right, immediately the builder takes the stones, and the im hizik mishalam hizik, whoever the stones are, the guy who brought it or the guy who's building, whoever has the stones at that time in his possession, and we'll see more later about it, is the one who's responsible if anybody gets damaged. Even though you're allowed to do it, you're still responsible if people get hurt. Shimon Lula says, no, who is malachtoi, if you have permission to build over there something in Shusarabim, you're not liable for damages. That you have 30 days, whatever it is, you're allowed to work, do your work there, and you are not responsible. If we gave you permission, you're not responsible if anything goes wrong. So for quickly, our mission is not for Yehuda. When you take out your rubbish, you're allowed to bring shrabim. You're allowed to leave it there for 30 days. because you want people to trample on it. You just said that as soon as you put it out, you got to take it out straight away. And Rabbi Yehuda said you can leave it for 30 days and people trample and turn it into fertilizer. So I'm asking in fact, this is like a condition of Yeshua took the land that people have to work together. You have to help each other out. Maybe we can say our mission and the author is Rabbi Yehuda, but a Moed Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda is Moed that you're not allowed to leave it there for 30 days, but our mission is just saying that you're responsible if anything goes awry if you leave it there too long. And Rabbi Yehuda might be Moed, just because you're allowed to do something doesn't take away your responsibility. So our mission is giving you advice. You want to avoid any damage, take it away straight away. But then what is a hakabi? But now we learn by Ner Chanukah, he says you are potter if you, let's say, left your candle outside and the camel went by with a bunch of flax and it got caught on fire, you are potter if it's a Ner Chanukah because you're allowed to put it out there. What does he claim here? That when you have permission to do something, even though you cause damage, you're potter. Not like our mission that says that you're still liable. My love should have bezin. Bezin gave you permission. You're allowed to. We're talking about a mitzvah. Mitzvah is very different. Time we learn, we'll just finish it. All those things that we said that you're allowed to put out in the street, you're allowed to throw there, for example, taking out the rubbish according to Rabbi Yehuda and so on. Or we had all the stormwater pipes you're allowed to open up. But even though you have permission to do it, you have to be very careful because if you cause any damage, you are responsible. And Rabbi Yehuda says, Claude Potter, even though you have permission, you Potter. How can I author a mission be Rabbi Yehuda? Tell me you're right. It's clear. Masnisin the loike Rabbi Yehuda. Mission is not conformed with Rabbi Yehuda. Again tomorrow, maybe